The crack of bone, that sound stays with you forever. It wasn't a movie. It wasn't a story somebody made up. It was real. It was the sound of a 16-year-old girl's arm being broken in a dark alley while the rain poured down. Her name was Naomi Brooks, honor student varsity tennis, the kind of kid teachers bragged about. She was just walking home from practice in her maroon jacket when three cops stopped her. They said she matched a description. They didn't ask questions, didn't give her time to explain. One shoved her bag open, her tennis racket clattering on the wet pavement. Another pressed his knee into her shoulder. And then came the baton. She screamed, begged, "Please, I didn't do anything." But the only answer was another strike. Her right arm, the one she held her racket with, hung limp, twisted wrong. One officer muttered, "She didn't comply fast enough." Another kicked her phone into a storm drain. The oldest one looked down at her and said, "You people always say you didn't do anything." Then, as if she was trash, they left. Engines roaring, lights fading, while Naomi lay curled on the ground, bleeding rainwater and tears. 5 blocks. That's how far her house was. But it felt like 50. Every porch she passed had a warm light in the window, but no one opened their doors. Folks had learned not to get involved. By the time she stumbled up her own steps, her good hand clutching the strap of her ruined bag, she looked like she'd walked out of a war zone. And when the door swung open, her mother froze. Dr. Camille Brooks, still in scrubs from her hospital shift, saw the blood on her daughter's face, the swelling, the grotesque angle of her arm. Her voice cracked. "Oh my God, Naomi." But her eyes went cold steady, like the moment before a storm. Because Camille Brooks wasn't just the trauma nurse. 15 years earlier, she had commanded a unit most folks never even knew existed. A covert recon team the Pentagon didn't acknowledge. She had kicked down doors in Kabul, pulled soldiers out of bunkers in mountains no map named. And when she had Naomi, she buried it all, every medal, every memory, just to raise her daughter safe. But safety was gone now. At the hospital, doctors worked quick. "Compound fracture," one said, flipping through Naomi's scans. "She'll need surgery, might not regain full grip strength." Naomi's eyes fluttered open, her voice flat. "What about tennis?" The doctor hesitated, then offered the kind of smile that wasn't really a smile. Camille leaned down, whispered, "We'll figure it out." Out loud, she was calm, but inside she was already making a list. A police liaison showed up that night. "Your daughter was non-compliant," he said smoothly. "Matched a robbery suspect, became hostile." Camille stared at him. She weighs 110 pounds soaking wet. She was walking home with a tennis racket. "That's your threat." He scribbled in his notebook like it meant something, then advised her not to talk to the press. She didn't even blink. "You think I'm worried about compromise?" Later, a call came from Colorado. A gravelly voice she hadn't heard in a decade, her old commanding officer warning her. "Internal Affairs is going to bury this call at confusion. Don't trust their process." Then silence. She needs. Back home, past midnight, Camille went into the garage. In the corner sat a footlocker she hadn't opened in years. She tapped in the code, lifted the lid, and there it was. Maps, field notes, old mission briefings, photos of dust-covered soldiers. She opened a leather binder, blank pages waiting. She picked up a pen, wrote 3 names, Knox, Morgan, Walsh, then one more, Hayes. And for the first time in years, Camille Brooks wasn't just a nurse, wasn't just a mom. She was a soldier again. She found allies in unexpected places. A neighbor, Mr. Lawson, trembling as he handed her an SD card. "My camera caught some of it. They told me to delete it, but I couldn't. The footage was only a minute long, but enough." Naomi hands up a baton, raised the crack of bone. Camille's eyes closed, her jaw set. "You did the right thing," she told him. He whispered, "I'm scared." She said, "You're not alone." She met an old contact too. Elena Park, once an NSA analyst, now a firebrand journalist who lived for chasing rot. In a diner before dawn, Camille slid her a flash drive. 3 officers. "They fractured my daughter's arm. Internal Affairs is covering it." Elena raised an eyebrow. You don't want to think peace, you want exposure. Camille's reply was sharp. I want accountability. But the rot went higher. In a hidden police form, Camille discovered it wasn't random brutality. It was ordered. A voice on body cam footage said the words clear as day, break the arm. Make sure it's the right one. She needs to be scared. That voice belonged to Captain Jonathan Hayes, head of internal affairs, the very man being paraded as a reformer. Naomi knew her mother was doing more than bandaging wounds. You're planning something, she accused. Camille didn't deny it. Would that be so wrong, Naomi whispered. I just wanted to be normal again. Camille's voice softened. You were never normal. You're extraordinary. And that scares people who only know how to silence. The showdown came at City Civic Hall. Hayes was minutes from being awarded a medal for community justice. Cameras were rolling, a choir humming, politicians rehearsing lines. That's when Camille walked in, Naomi by her side, her arms still braced in gauze. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Security hesitated as Camille held up a borrowed press badge. She mounted the stage, voice steady. Before we pin another medal for justice, maybe we should see what that word really means. She plugged in a flash drive. On the giant screen, the grainy footage rolled Naomi in the alley baton, swinging bone, snapping her voice, begging. And then Hayes' order, chilling, undeniable, break the arm. Make sure she knows who owns her safety. The hall erupted. Reporters shouted. Parents covered their mouths. Hayes stood snarling. This is fake, but then another voice cut through. No, sir. Officer Perez, young, nervous, stepped forward. I was there. I stayed silent. Not anymore. He handed over a notarized statement. The footage was wiped. I kept a copy because it didn't sit right. 2 state troopers moved in. Hayes barked, don't touch me. I built this department. Camille's voice sliced through, well, you built your career on fear. He sneered at Naomi. You'll ruin a good man's life over mistake. And Naomi, voice trembling but strong, answered, you ruined mine, and I'm still here. The cuffs clicked. The crowd exploded, half in cheers, half in stunned silence. Naomi didn't smile. She just stared at the empty space Hayes left behind. Camille wrapped her arms around her daughter. Justice isn't a painkiller, she whispered. But it's a start. The fallout was fast. Federal investigations, precincts, suspended hidden cases resurfacing. Naomi went to therapy, her fingers slowly regaining movement, though tennis was gone. She started writing instead. Her first piece, My Silence Wasn't Consent, went viral, picked up by civil rights groups. Camille didn't return to her old house. She worked quietly with nonprofits pushing for reform in schools. One night, Naomi read a letter from a school in another state. Thanks to their footage, a corrupt officer was removed before he could harm a 9-year-old girl. Naomi folded the letter, asked her mom, did we change anything? Camille looked out the window. Not enough, but something. Naomi smiled, not because everything was fixed, but because finally it was possible. And that's where I leave you. A girl who believed following the rules would keep her safe until she learned the rules weren't written for her. A mother who buried her past only to unearth it when her child's future was shattered. And a system that tried to silence them until evidence spoke louder. Now, I've got to ask you, what do you think, was Camille right to expose everything, even if it meant going back to war? Should parents fight the system head on, or does that just make more enemies? And have you ever seen someone silenced, overlooked, or broken, only to rise louder than ever? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Because justice doesn't whisper. It demands to be heard.